everybody, and welcome to our second webinar Wednesday, where we are going to be looking at alternative routes to employment. I'm Jenna Richardson, and I'm the Employer Liaison Lead for the EM3 Armed Forces Veterans and Families programme at RFEA, the Forces Employment Charity. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with RFEA, we are a charity that's been offering employment support to the armed forces community since 1885. So we're not new, we've been around quite a while, and we have a range of programs designed to support the different groups within the armed forces community into employment and training opportunities. We have a team of caseworkers who provide one-to-one support to our clients, which can include things like CV writing, interview skills training, help to translate their skills into things that are recognised by civilian employers, and generally supporting our clients in any way that we can with their employment journeys. The EM3 programme that I specifically work on is a new initiative, or part of a new initiative, I should say, from the Enterprise M3 Local Enterprise Partnership, which covers West Surrey and Hampshire. We are working with veterans, spouses and partners of veterans and currently serving military personnel. And for the first time, we're working with the young people in the community, aged 14 to 24, who have a parent or carer who has served or is serving in the British military. The Local Enterprise Partnership have identified that there is a significant skills gap in the digital, technological and sustainable construction industries. So we are focusing specifically onto those sectors. And we're delighted to be working alongside Tech Vets, Building Heroes, the University of Winchester and Ex-Forces Enterprise to provide training opportunities to this community to enable them to gain the skills that they and qualifications that they require in order to support the skills gap and to future-proof the industry's development and progression. So the bit that we're all waiting for today, our webinar. We are at that time of year where lots of people are eagerly awaiting their exam results. Tomorrow is A-level results day and next Thursday is GCSE results day. But what if you open your exam results tomorrow and you don't necessarily get the results that you were hoping for or you had expected? What if you decide that the traditional route for education is too expensive given the sharp rise in the cost of living? Or what if you just change your mind and don't fancy that traditional route of remaining in education for the next 3, 4, 5 years? What alternatives are there? So that's the purpose of our webinar Wednesdays. We are exploring with some of our employers different routes into the industries that we're working with. I am absolutely delighted to have with us today Alex and Bex from Knology. Now, Knology is one of our EM3 registered employers. They are incredibly supportive of the work that we do. And so I'm delighted to have them here to be able to tell us a little bit more about the work that Knology does and how people can access roles and training with the company. So Bex, could I ask you first just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and your role within Knology, please?
Of course. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks for having us, first of all. It's lovely to be here. So, yeah, my name is Bex. I am the Head of Talent and CSR at Knology. And what that means is that Knology, and we'll go into detail in a little bit about what the company does and kind of how I fit in that company, is that we get people from all different backgrounds to come in and train with us for 12 weeks. And in that 12 weeks, they learn to become a junior software engineer. And it sounds like an impossible task doing that in 12 weeks. And we don't need you to have had a prior experience in coding at all. But we bring those people through who have aptitude and passion to move into the tech industry. And so my job is finding those people, making sure that we're reaching the right communities and people that we want to bring through, get them through a selection process, which is a 3-stage selection process that identifies all the things that we're looking for, including, the passion to go into tech, the aptitude for coding, people that are really motivated and curious to learn, all of those sorts of things. And we put them through that selection selection process. At the end of that, we offer them a place on the 12-week programme, and my team's job is kind of to look after them pastorally throughout those 12 weeks. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, you will interview with clients that Knology arrange for you to meet and interview with, and you will be placed on site with them for 18 months as a junior software engineer. And Knology kind of acts as this sort of security hammock, really, to kind of pass you through your training and then out onto client site at the end of it. So the whole journey is sort of between 18 months to 2 years with us at Knology. So I'm kind of in charge of the team that looks after you from beginning to end, and kind of pass you through different teams along the way to make the whole journey complete. So that's me and my role in a nutshell.
That's brilliant, Bex. Thank you very much. And we also have Alex from Knology as well. Alex, could I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Knology, please?
You can. I'm marketing director for Knology. Knology is also part of a group of recruitment companies headed up by Opus Talent Solutions. And I work across both Knology and the other brands. So I work very closely with the sales teams that are the ones that are engaging with clients consistently, looking at what their drivers are as far as the types of people that they want to employ. We only place people in tech or renewable energy roles. And in both sectors, there is a huge lack of diversity, which is something that all our clients are crying out for. And by diversity, I think we're not just talking about gender or ethnicity or sexual orientation, but what they really want is people who come from different kind of backgrounds with different types of life experience, so that their tech teams can become more integrated and reflective of the audiences that all our clients are wanting to engage with. Hence us facilitating partnerships with organisations like yourselves to try and educate people on, or not educate, but kind of myth bust the preconceptions that I think a lot of people have about the types of skills or backgrounds that are required to learn tech skills and benefit from the opportunities that, you know, such in-demand skills actually provide people looking for either career change or employment.
Brilliant. I think that that leads in quite nicely to thinking about the skills within the military community. You know, we have veterans leaving or have left service who have done like full careers in sort of things that have a technical basis. We have spouses and partners who have got all sorts of different experiences and skills and qualifications. And now, like I mentioned earlier, we've got the young people who they're digitally savvy. So you know, these are it's a perfect example of how an industry is recognizing the importance of that diversity, and it's great to be able to work with an organization like yourself who is so keen to recognize that and utilize some of the amazing talent that we do have within the forces community. So that's really interesting. So can you explain a little bit more about how the organization works with the EM3 program? You know, we've been working with you for a little while. I mean, can you explain a little bit more how we work together?
I think, Bex, do you want me to respond to this one?
Either I can jump in.
I think our objective is to ensure that everybody from every background is aware of the opportunities that gaining tech skills bring. And I think one of the, you know, if we look now, we know there's this huge global skills shortage. And I think when we look at the traditional methods that maybe our government have used to try and address this, it's like, let's go into junior schools and try and encourage more girls to take STEM subjects. But for me, that actually exacerbates the problem rather than resolves it, because what we're doing is reinforcing the fact that you have to come from some kind of science, maths or engineering background to learn to code. And actually what we find is it's people who have the right, who are creative thinkers, who are problem solvers, who have a logical way of learning, that are committed and motivated. And these are the skills that our clients who we're working so closely with are desperate to engage people, and then we can upskill them, we can teach them the right people to learn to code. So part of us working with organisations such as yours is to ensure that we're reaching communities and speaking to people that wouldn't be necessarily aware of this through the traditional routes. I mean, we look at the way we write our advertising, for example, and when we see a lot of tech job ads, they're written in technical language. So unless you've already got that skill, I think we've made comparisons before that if you want to learn to speak French, but someone only advertised French lessons in French, no one will understand what they're talking about. So the way that we want to continue to work is just to ensure that we get the opportunity to talk to people who are either coming out of the armed forces, wives, women in the armed forces, young children of people in the armed forces that are maybe graduating college or school, and make sure that they're aware of the opportunity, aware of the reality of what is actually required, rather than the preconceptions and often misconceptions of what is required, in order to see if that's an opportunity they want to take advantage of. I think if we are able to make those connections and people are then excited to learn more, it's then to work closely together to make sure that the right processes are put in place as far as discussions, assessment, them learning from us as much as us learning from them to see if it's something that they want to move forward with. Absolutely. And then it obviously moves into the actual training, which Andy, I'm sure, will go into a lot more detail later on.
Brilliant. No, I think that's a really interesting point. And I think from what you've just said, Alex, what I take from that is that, like you say, you don't necessarily have to have that background in science and STEM subjects. It's more those sort of personal qualities that you're looking for. You can teach people to code, but if they don't have that sort of natural, the almost what they call possibly the soft skills that people may well need, that's like you say, you can teach people to code, but if they don't have that other sort of general background, then it can be a little bit more tricky.
I think it's also a reflection on, people talk about the tech sector, but actually, tech is now the DNA of pretty much every sector.
Absolutely. This is tech, isn't it? Us doing this.
This rather kind of stereotypical and slightly outdated perception that coders or software engineers are kind of, alienated from the rest of that kind of workforce and community. And actually, because it is becoming so much more a part of the DNA of every business, every sector, that the people within those teams become integral to understanding the wider business and producing products or websites or apps or whatever it may be that are accessible to, a much broader group of people. So it has to become a lot more collaborative and integrated, and it Definitely. Is that way rather than the kind of necessarily preconceptions that people have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the collaboration's the key with this, isn't it? And working together. And I would really like to welcome Andy to our conversation. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a technical hitch where poor Andy got left in the backstage room. So apologies for that, Andy. Would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do in your role at Knowledgy, please? Oh, we can't hear you, Andy. Okay, we'll come back to Andy in just a second then. It just seems to be some sort of technical issues today. So apologies for that, everybody. So going back to sort of the process within Knowledgy. So what are the types of roles that are available within the organisation? How can people work within this particular sector?
So at the moment we are running two separate courses. One is targeted at software engineering and one is targeted now at cloud engineering. So they are the two different routes you can go down. Obviously, the skill set that you learn throughout both those programs equip you for many jobs in the tech sector. And actually, later on down the line, once you've done your 18 months with Knowledgy and you've done your placement, you are then equipped with this new skill set that you can really take anywhere. in the tech industry. There's lots of sort of divisions within software engineering with sort of what we call front end and back end engineers. So front end being all of the stuff that we can see on our screen right now, but back end being all the stuff that happens in the ether in the background that no one really can see. There's kind of both really important avenues that that we need in our engineers, so you can then take your career wherever you wish to go. But the programs that Knowledge run that give you very specific skill sets for either software engineering or cloud engineering will then lead directly into junior roles within that kind of area.
Okay, so am I right in thinking that you recruit people to do the apprenticeship roles, the training roles, and then you place them with your employer partners? Is that how it works?
That's right, yeah. So we'll recruit them and put them through a 3-stage selection process. And I can break that down in a moment so we know what that involves. And then after the training is 12 weeks. And then at the end of that 12 weeks, we start lining up clients that we already work with and have consultants placed at, and sometimes new clients, to then come in and interview our people that have just finished training, so that we can then place them on site and they move into their junior role on site with the client. Knowledge remains their employer, so we're always there looking after them, but they're then put out on site with a client for that real life working experience. So then to circle back around to what we spoke about before, the selection process, so how you would get on the program. So we have kind of split it out into 3 stages, and each stage kind of highlights a different thing that we need to see in the candidates. But like Alex said before, there is no requirement to have ever seen or written a line of code in your life. And I actually did the course myself, and I turned up on the first day and I had not seen code before. So if you have, of course, it's brilliant, but you really don't need to have done. So the selection process doesn't require any prior knowledge of coding. The first stage is sort of competency based. So it tests things like your sort of self-motivation, your drive to learn new skills. It sort of highlights those people that are honest and open, curious to learn, skills that you've learned recently and why you did them, questions that are just looking at the kind of people that we feel are a really good fit for Knowledge. So that is in what we call a solo interview format. So it's not live with an interviewer, but 4 questions appear on the screen, and then you respond and record your answer as you're responding, and that comes through and we mark it later. So that's the first stage. The second stage is what we call our logic quiz, which is a 4-part puzzle quiz that looks at things like logical thinking, problem solving, pattern recognition, that sort of thing. But it's really fun. It takes half an hour, and it's kind of like, in the newspaper when you have that page of Sudokus and sundials and stuff. It's a bit like that. So it's quite fun, and that's our second stage, and that highlights the aptitude to code, those people who can pick up on patterns, solve problems, etc. And then the final stage is a group interview session where we all jump on a video call, a bit like this one, and we split off into small groups and do a bit of a session with one of our coaches, like Andy, who just jumped on. They take you through some real basic concepts in coding, just so you get a taster of us, as well as us seeing how you respond in that environment. And sort of you get a little quiz at the end for you to fill out, and it's sort of based on the learning of that short lesson that you've just had. And then the final little group task is a discussion-based one where you solve a problem as a group, so that we can see how you come up with a solution together and you're sort of compromising and working well in a team. And then that's it. So the whole process is quite quick and hopefully quite fun. We think so, don't we, Alex? But then we are biased. So yeah, that's kind of it, really. And then if you are successful, you're brought into the 12-week training program.
Brilliant.
What I would add on that from Bex talking about, and this is a story, I hope you don't mind me sharing, Bex, but when Bex turned up to her kind of interview, let's call it interview for the sake of ease, really, she didn't know where the hashtag key was on the keyboard. So that is just to reinforce that, that we do not expect you to come with coding experience, but it's the qualities to learn that we look to identify. And Bex came, she was, I hope you don't mind me showing Bex, she was a West End dancer that actually, you know, as pandemic hit and looking to move into a different environment, kind of came across Knology and has been with us ever since. Bex, what can I ask, just because I think it's important, what attracted you to tech, coming from such a background that seems so the opposite end of the spectrum? Would you share why you chose tech as the path? What was it that appealed to you?
For me, it was the industry, or the sort of the sector that I thought had the most longevity in a career. And I'd come from, obviously, dancing professionally was always going to be short-lived. You know, my body couldn't handle kicking my legs around every day for much longer. You know, you get injuries and all of that. So it was, for me, what can take me to retirement, but what is also quite creative and challenging, something that you're always learning. There's always new things coming out that you need to keep up to date with. But I also, as you know, Alex, I love working together with people, like working in groups and collaborating together and creating something together is what I love doing. And so I knew that tech was kind of becoming more and more collaborative, and having a project that you all chip in on and build together and end up with this product really appealed to me. So and then once I found Knology, obviously I felt quite at home at Knology. Just the people were really welcoming, and I didn't feel stupid to ask complete newbie questions because everyone has to be a newbie at some point. But I can really relate to, obviously I haven't been in the military, but I can relate to these, you know, you guys in the sense that the background that I came from was, you know, I knew nothing else. We spent a lot of time together in close groups. So it was a real big change, and quite a scary change to make. But once you've made that change, you realise that there is another world out there than you were in before. And that's so exciting to know that at any point in your life and at any point in your career, tech is there for you, and you really can learn these skills having never looked at them or, you know, been interested in it before. So yeah, I found it all quite exciting and scary, of course. But
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine that. That's some jump, isn't it, for the West End to the tech industry? But it's amazing to hear that, Bex. And like you say, there are really clear parallels between, you know, people leaving the armed forces, and also not just the actual sort of service leavers and veterans. It's, you know, the families. A lot of military spouses and partners, and I include myself in that. We're unable to continue with our careers because supporting someone who's serving, a lot of our careers just don't match up with that. They don't. They're just incompatible. So, you know, to know that there is, you know, for me, life after teaching, and to know that there is an alternative within the tech sector, like you say, it's got such longevity. It's great to hear a story, you know, a real life story of somebody who has gone from one career to another with Knology, and to be able to really sort of showcase the positives of looking towards tech as a you know, a second career effectively. So that's really great to hear.
It's worth adding on to that as well, that obviously the other benefits of tech is it is a foot in the door to any sector. So if someone is, you know, if there's people on the call who may be looking at their exam results coming out tomorrow, you know, if you've got a dream of working in fashion or medicine or finance, these skills are in demand, and there are not enough of them in every sector. The salaries that are around 63% above national average.
Wow.
And it facilitates remote working and working from anywhere. So absolutely, all of those things are also worth considering.
Definitely. And I know for a lot of people that mobility, that being able to work from home and work from anywhere, it's such a draw, and it opens up so many possibilities for the military community, and also like for the young people as well. You know, I think, maybe speaking for myself, but, you know, late 30s and everything, you know, I've kind of learned my tech as I've gone along, but the youngsters that are coming through now, they were born into it. They know so much more, and they're such a great fountain of knowledge that, you know, can only, you know, to nurture that and to bring it on and to, you know, into you know, tangible careers that you can use that in. It's quite incredible, really. It's amazing. So what sort of things do you do to enable people to access the roles that you have? I mean, we've mentioned apprenticeships, but do you do like work experience or internships or anything else? Is it I mean, how is it, you know, probably Bex, this is one for you, but what does it look like? Is it always the same? Are there different routes? Is I think what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It is actually the same, because the Knology sort of run a model that we know works, and so we run it the same way every time, and that is, you know, come through the training, which is free of charge. You don't pay for the training at all, and then you interview with the client, and from day one of that client placement, you then get paid your salary as a junior software engineer. And so it is that route every time. So you come in, you train with us. It takes 3 months to get up to scratch to that level that we know you're really a really strong junior in the market. As Alex said before, the demand far exceeds the talent pool at the moment. So sort of hot property, as soon as you've got that skill set, the clients are really interested. We put you into your role, and then you go off for 18 months and you learn that junior skill set for 18 months to form what we would call a T-shaped developer. So being a T-shaped developer usually means that for that junior period of 18 months, you build out that T, the top of a letter T, and then at some point in that 18 months that you spend with Knology, you'll find your little area that you really want to drill down into and specialize in, so that then you become that T-shape. So the 18 months with us is really about building that top section of the T out, so that then you're kind of equipped after your 18 months to us to know where you then want to specialize, because it's such a, you know, big field. There is so many roles out there that then do specialize, but with your junior, your first 18 months, it's just important for you to see as much and experience as much of that as possible, and then decide where you want to specialize. So all of our roles that we place you into will be junior software engineer roles or junior cloud engineer roles, and you'll kind of start there for your 18 months, and then after the 18 months, it's up to you where you take it, really.
I think the other thing to add on to that is, you know, at the end of the 18 months, if you compare it to maybe a university education, you do 12 weeks of highly intensive training. So it is full time, it's all delivered remotely, but it's from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. and there's probably work you need to do outside of those hours. You then, once you're placed with a client, that is an accelerated continuation of your learning, because you are still a knowledgeist, you're still employed by us. The fact is you're getting paid through that training, but at the end of that 18 months, you shouldn't necessarily be perceived as a junior software engineer or cloud engineer, which means your earning potential, if you look at your CV and you look at the kind of clients that we place with, you've then got a really in-demand skill set. You've got work with the likes of Accenture, Goldman Sachs, Admiral on your CV. So your earning potential at the end of that 18 months is probably what most people would take 10 to 12 years to try and get to. So it's a very different landscape as far as income goes at the end of that 18 months.
That's quite incredible, really. So what's do you take, is it from 18? Is that your sort of starting age group? Is that, I'm assuming?
We usually say 18. We have nothing against taking anybody younger. 16, you know, that's absolutely fine. For us, it's more about the maturity and the approach to learning. So there is no set.
Oh, got a bit back.
And his mic's working.
It's working now.
That 16 and above. Usually our students have been 18 and above.
Okay.
Obviously that we're willing to make exceptions for those sort of outstanding people that just show us their maturity and commitment. We will always consider those people too.
Brilliant. No, that's really great, and especially for the young people in the community that we're now working with. That's really, really good to know. I think we've got our technical hitch sorted now. So Andy's back with us. So Andy, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do at Knowledge, please?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, can you hear me okay, Jenna?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Yeah, amazing. Hi everybody to everybody who's listening. My name's Andy. I run the day-to-day training of our programs that Alex and Bex are speaking about. So I'm really here in a technical capacity to talk a little bit about tech, but so far everything that Alex and Bex has said so far has been exactly right. Knowledge offers a completely different way of getting into technology that didn't exist even as recently as sort of 5 to 10 years ago, where traditionally going through university, computer science degrees was the way to go into software development and software engineering. And now this more condensed program where applicants become part of Knowledge and go on site as one of our consultants is a completely different way to get into the industry. And personally, I found that interesting to see the difference. I can talk a little bit more about the sort of technical side of things on the course, but perhaps I know there's a little bit of a Q&A session at the end, so I can kind of dig in a little bit more then. But for anyone who is interested, Knowledge offers a full stack software engineering program. So these are all of the tools that you need to go on to work on site as a junior developer. If there is anyone who has a bit of an interest in programming at the moment, we teach certain languages. Now the languages are instructions for computers to understand. So that's for building a mobile app for your phone, for building a website, for any kind of software which runs on a device. So we're teaching these languages which allow you to build all of these exciting things. And the languages that we teach are JavaScript and Java, which you can find a lot about online. But I think probably going any deeper than that for now might not be best, and we can save it for Q&A. So yeah, I guess I'll hand back to Jenna, and if we do want to drill into the course a little bit more, then just let me know.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Andy. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. So Bex, you've already kind of explained, the benefits that you found when you moved from your first career into this one. But what are there any other benefits that of working in this sector that you can think of? I know we've mentioned like mobility and how it accesses lots of other industries. But is there anything else that is immediately you think of as being a benefit of being involved and employed within the tech sector?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on it, but for me, working remotely is fantastic. And like you said about even the spouses of people working in the military, being remote just gives you that extra flexibility in life that coming from a theatre background, like we said before, I never had. I was doing 8 shows a week and I had one day off and I had to be in London. And now I usually spend 2 months of the year in Sardinia working because I can. And it's fantastic. And so that for me is a big plus, working remotely. The other thing I'd say that I noticed is that there is such an online community of people that work in tech. So there's so many different groups and forums, lots of people you can always reach out to if you've come across a challenge that you don't know how to fix a certain bug, and you're no longer training and you don't have that kind of day-to-day coach with you. You've always got a huge community out there of people doing it who find this stuff really exciting and they're passionate about it. So there's lots of people out online that you can meet and network with there as well. There's also always something to learn. So if you're someone who is hungry to learn and doesn't like being stagnant, that for me is like a fear of mine, is feeling like I'm not developing in some capacity. Then if you like learning like that, then tech is fantastic in that way, because you are never done. You never know everything. And Andy, for me, is a whiz kid. He knows so much about so much. But even Andy would tell you that there's always more to learn, and so that is exciting in itself. There's so many different areas you can go into, so you can find your interest within tech and follow that. And so there's lots of flexibility in terms of living. You can have remote roles, but there's also lots of flexibility within the tech sector, because there are so many little avenues that you can go down, and you can just find what one sort of suits you the most. So there are a few. I'll probably think of more, but just off the bat, those are a few.
Yeah, no, that all makes perfect sense. And I think for me, in the role that I do, I mean, I could use Microsoft. I could do bits and pieces that I need to do with tech, and that's still the case. But having, spent a lot of time recently working and talking with employers that are operational in this region, in this sector, I'm learning so much more. I mean, when Andy was talking about Java and JavaScript, I mean, I sort of sat there thinking, yes, I know that's computer language. I wouldn't have known that before. We were talking about C# to someone the other day, and I was amazed that I knew what I was talking about. But it's all these little bits and pieces that, like you say, there's so many different avenues and different sort of elements to this sector that, as an outsider, someone who's looking in, it's quite it's vast, and it's mind blowing to think how many different opportunities there are. And going back to what you were saying about the community, our director of the Tech Vets team, he showed me the community that Tech Vets have, and I mean, that's incredible. And seeing the amount of people on there, and like you say about these individual communities that are keen to help each other, and like you say, fixing bugs and supporting each other in accessing different roles and that kind of thing. It's a really sort of inclusive and welcoming sector from what I've seen as an outsider. So it's great to hear you telling us your sort of own experiences of it. I don't know, Alex or Andy, do you have anything else to suggest, that you really enjoy about being part of this industry?
For me, oh, sorry, Andy, you go.
Okay. I think, prior to joining Knowledge, I spent sort of 8 or 9 years as a software developer. And the one thing I always talk to people about in terms of what I enjoyed was the ability to work in different industries. So, I was working in the music industry for a while, working with startups, working with large enterprise companies, working in the agricultural sector. Other people I know worked in fashion or finance, and yet at the core of it, you're still working as a software developer. So this one tool has all of these different applications to get insights into different industries. So in that sense, I think that's a pretty big perk in terms of you're learning a skill which can be applied to so many different areas. And if you are a generalist or somebody who takes interest in a lot of different things as well, at least you're not sort of narrowly focusing on just one industry. But apart from that, I just agree with everything else which has already been said around the flexibility of how they work. Obviously, it's an in-demand skill, so salaries are quite competitive. But yeah, I guess I'll hand on to Alex. Alex, what kind of came to mind when Jenna said that question before to you?
I think my role's obviously very different than Andy and Bex, and I think for me it is looking to bring a wider group of people into a sector that is probably the most important sector, and the most influential sector that we have right now. And I think to have people from different backgrounds with different opinions, different ways of reviewing things and different experiences is absolutely integral, as we move forward. So that's something, and I think that isn't just something that is recognised by Knowledge. I think it's something that we are also reacting to because of the number of clients that we speak to who are desperate to diversify their tech teams. And again, I'm talking about diversity as a much wider subject than necessarily gender, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. It was people with different experiences, different thoughts, different opinions. And I think the value that people like that can bring by learning the skill sets and, you know, entering these tech teams is really exciting.
Oh, that's brilliant, and it's really interesting that you've all got quite similar but different experiences, and you see seeing things that are all similar but all slightly different. So, yeah, that's really interesting. And I think one of the questions I always like to ask people about their roles is, you know, what do you enjoy about it? And you've all given some like really, you know, great responses to that question without me even having to ask it, really. So yeah, that's really that's brilliant. So I'm going to go over to the questions, because we have got a few that have popped up in the comments section. So bear with me while I have a little scroll through. So oh no, Shakarat's got it sorted for me. So Isla has said, how can people sign up? So for the Enterprise M3 or the EM3 program, you need to head over to our website, which is www.rfea.org.uk/EM3, which is at the bottom of the screen. Dead easy. It's just a online registration form. You select whether you are a veteran or whether you are from the families community, so spouse, partner, or young person, and then we can get you registered, and then we can offer you whatever support that you're looking for and direct you to the team at Knology. So I hope that's answered that question. Have we got another one that we... So Colin's asking, Bex, can you confirm that this is a no payback model?
Sure, yeah. So there is no fee for training, like we said before, at all. So as long as you come through the 12-week training period and you work the 18 months with Knology, there is no payback at all. So that's the model, and that's kind of the commitment that you make from the beginning to work those 18 months out. If you end up leaving those 18 months earlier, then you have a portion of our course fee repayment to do. So the course fees, if you were paying them, obviously on our model you don't pay them, they would be £9,000. But you would not be paying that at all, because if you think about it, it's sort of like your 18 months with us kind of pays off that, you know, eventually. But if you were to leave the 18 months early and decide that you were going to go and seek employment elsewhere, then there will be a portion of that £9,000, depending on how long you've been with us, that you would then pay back. But otherwise, there's no big exit fee that we stamp on you other than that. It's just that if you were to leave the agreement early, then there's a little bit of fees to pay back there.
I think there's one thing I would add on to that as well, is that you know, we run a certain number of courses because we pretty much guarantee the employment and earning at the end of that, and therefore, you know, and we have more people wanting to do the course than we necessarily are able to facilitate at the moment. So we have to, so if a place is taken by someone who then decides they don't want it, that opportunity is being removed from someone else. But what I would say more importantly than that is that I don't think we've had any experience of it, because our assessment and selection process is so thorough that people are fully aware of what they're going into, and they're generally really committed and excited by it. And we're fully aware of the support that they will need to thrive. So it's a question that, and I think because of that, if I'm honest, it's something that we are looking to review, because it's like, well, if we know that, why are we even saying that people would need to refund what the equivalent cost of the training would be? So I think that's probably likely to change in the very near future. But we certainly haven't had any experience of it since running this model, simply because it's what our selection assessment process, which is a two-way thing, not just for us, but also for people who are interested in learning more, is so transparent and so detailed and done with such thought and care that there isn't a shock to either party.
Yeah.
You know, 6 months down the line. Brilliant.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So thank you for that Thank you to you both for that. The next question is from Sam, and he says, given the nature of the tech sector, do people, when they finish, prefer working as FTEs or do they move into contract work? I don't know who was best to aim that one to.
I'm happy to take that. I presume Sam's talking about full-time employment, sort of called permanent or contract work. And it's always a mixture, I would say, particularly when you're starting out in technology, without the support of a company like Knowledge, most people would go into full-time employment or permanent roles. As people sort of progress throughout their career, they will sometimes move into contract work, either for the flexibility or the variety, or but most people I know, including myself, I've gone from permanent to contract, just more based on the opportunity and the role, rather than being particular about sort of one style of employment or another. But there might sort of be a different view on that. Obviously you have to take a little bit more active involvement in your finances and paying tax, particularly if you're a limited company, learning about corporation tax and so forth, or dividends payments. Whereas some people prefer more to focus just on being an employee and having that taken care of. So it's a really good question. And yeah, unfortunately, I think generally it is just a mix, and can also depend a lot on what the market's doing as well. Contracts, sometimes seems a lot more volatile, as well. Yeah. So good question, but I'm afraid I don't have a sort of firm answer.
I think it's probably one of those that it's very dependent on that individual and their circumstances at the time, isn't it? I think it's kind of individual led, really. But thanks very much for that, Andy. That was a great answer. The next question from Colin: if our younger clients wanted to get a head start, what programming languages would you recommend? So over to you. I think this is you, Andy, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I think that online resources for JavaScript, whether it's on YouTube or free websites like Free Code Camp or Code Academy, no other language has that same level of online resources. Just the nature of the language as well lends itself to people who are just starting out as well. I could go into sort of what those are, but might just have to take my word for it that JavaScript is a bit more of a flexible, lenient language for people just getting started, and the online resources are amazing. So I would, without a doubt, recommend that. Also because of the different types of things that you can build with that. It can be used for web apps. You can also apply it to mobile applications as well. So it's very versatile in that sense. I'm not sure if there is the opportunity to share some links after this webinar, but as easy as going onto YouTube and typing "introduction to JavaScript" will give you, tens if not hundreds of great ways to go down the rabbit hole, as it were.
Excellent, thank you very much. The next one we've got is from Maya. What would a junior salary start at? Bex, I think this is with you.
Yeah, I could take that one. So you start at 24k at the moment when you start with your client, and then after 6 months that raises to 26k, and then at 12 months that goes up to 28k, and then for the remaining 6 months of the contract you remain at 28k. What I would say is that once you have finished your Knowledge 18 months on site and you were then to go and find your own employment, at that point you would be moving into sort of what we'd call mid-level, being a mid-level developer after 18 months as being a junior, and your salary then, your potential increases hugely just by changing that to mid rather than junior. You then shoot into sort of 40k, would you say, Andy, around about now, 35 to 40 k, and then upwards from there as your experience increases. So the Knowledge model, those 18 months goes 24, 26, 28. And if you think about the free training at the start of that as well, then after those 18 months with us, it can then, sky's the limit, really.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, That sounds great. That's answered that question and some more. So thank you very much for that. That's brilliant. And the next question is from Joseph, and he's asking, for the young people out there who are already interested in gaming and have built or tinkered with computers, is there any real world benefit for them doing this, or transferable skills to the workplace? So Andy, I think that's probably yours, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is yes, absolutely. It lends itself to coming onto a course. So, what Bex and Alex were saying earlier about no prior experience, that is absolutely true, and that is where knowledge is pitched at. Is at the starting level, it is open, accessible, inclusive. People who don't have a background. However, if you have had some experience, even just the sort of familiarity with being on a computer and how they work, perhaps you've used the command line interface before, or sorry, Bex, knowing where the hashtag key is, then that can definitely help. I think just on that point there around tinkered with their computers as well. Some roles that you can go on to within technology as well build on that more than others. So just to take an example, you could have one role which goes down more of a design sort of role where you focus on user experiences, how the web page looks, how people feel about it. But then there's also another route you can go down, which is much more considering, okay, how does this application run on a computer? How much resources is it taking up? How do we make it scalable and usable all around the world in different regions or different zones? So in that sense, sort of, saying, okay, we've got this amount of computers in this location, having that understanding, or at least that interest, maybe is better, definitely lends itself to some roles more than others. So I guess, yes is the short answer, but it definitely doesn't, I definitely don't want to people feel that this is a requirement coming in, but it can be an advantage for sure.
Brilliant. That's amazing. That's kind of what we sort of thought was going to be the case, and kind of wanted to hear, really, because that it does highlight that those skills are transferable into this industry, but you don't necessarily need to have them. So, which I think is the main thing that I take from this conversation, is that it's more about the person for Knowledge. You can teach them the skills, but it's the person that you're looking for. So we have come to the end of our questions. And I think everything has been answered that's been asked. I think we've had some great answers. We've had some great questions. So thank you, everybody, for popping the questions in the chat. That's been brilliant. I hope we've not been too hard on our guests today with the questions. I hope nothing came too far out of left field. Yeah, so this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Alex, Andy, and Bex, for your time. Thanks for joining us and helping to understand a bit more about Knowledge. I'm sure that everyone's going to agree that we've all learned a lot about the model, and also the wider sort of the tech space. I've certainly learned a lot about how you guys operate. So that's, taught me a thing or two, which is always useful in what I do. So I think this is probably going to give some of our viewers something to think about in terms of the tech sector and how to get into it. So thank you to all three of you. Really grateful to you for joining us and for giving us your time. And finally, for all of our viewers, for those of you who do have exam results looming tomorrow and next Thursday, we all wish you the very, very best of luck with that. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, all the very best with it. And just a reminder that we have our next webinar Wednesday, surprisingly, next Wednesday. And we are looking at sustainable construction, and we have another one of our EM3 employers joining us for that. So if you're around on Wednesday, please do tune in. So I think from me and the team, thanks very much, and goodbye for now.
Thanks, Jenna. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.